Oh, yes. We wanted to do a couple more worship songs. But that electricity. All right, kids, you have a good Sunday service, okay? Enjoy your Sunday service. You guys did a great job with your freedom and responsibility in that room. Good job. Keep it up. Keep it up. Good job. All right. And we're going to talk about the blood wars today. Let's talk about the blood wars. Let's start with Genesis 3. And let's look at the fall of mankind. Let's read this together. Genesis 3, we'll go from verse 1 to 7. Let's read together. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. We can see a lot when we delve closely into the fall of man. It's very interesting that here, Satan is working on Eve with a very powerful emotion. Very powerful. He goes to her and he said, Well, ye shall not surely die. God knows that in the day that you eat of that fruit, your eyes will be open, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Satan went to Eve, and he said, well, why does God have to have all that deep knowledge of everything, and you don't? How come you can't have it? How come you can have all the trees of the garden, but how come God won't give you that tree? Right? God is that tree. You deserve to have that tree. I want you to be as a God. I want you to have full knowledge. I want you to have full power. I want you to be great like God. That which God is hiding from you, he's actually stealing from you. And that is really yours to have. You deserve it. It is God that is robbing you of that. And you won't die if you take it. You'll be more powerful. And Satan is working on Eve. He's working on one of the most base emotions that we have, which is envy. Right? Envy. Being envious of God. See, there's many different types of envy. We can be envy of other people, envy of this or that. And envy is very different from like jealousy, or envy is different from seeing somebody who's better than you and saying, wow, that motivates me. I want to work harder. I want to get better like them. We see somebody with envy, and at the worst level, we want what they have, without having deserved it ourselves. Give me what they have, that should be mine, even though they worked for it, or even though they built it. It's the envy of man that Satan tempts, even to break the commandment, the first commandment, to not worship any idols, to not take any other graven images before God. Why can't I be a God? Why does God have to only hog that for himself? Wait a minute. There's many philosophies that will tell you, you can be God. You can be God. If you have this secret knowledge, right? If you have this gnosis, this secret occult knowledge, you can be as God. And it's interesting because here, the serpent says to her, for God knows that in the day thereof, your eyes will be open, you should be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes. It was pleasant to the eyes. And that it was desired to make one wise. There is a lustfulness when the devil makes us envy somebody else. Amen. There's a lust. Things become pleasant looking. Hey, maybe if I do take that thing which is not mine, maybe my life will become better. Maybe that will give me lots of pleasure. There is a pleasantness that the devil will tempt you with, or can tempt us with. And that leads, of course, that fulfills and exacerbates these feelings of envy. Now, this is very important to understand because when we see civilization, we can see many different types of civilizations, but really we see, as we discussed many times, two types of civilizations. We see civilization of oligarchy or totalitarianism, and we see civilizations that try to go with volunteerism, freedom, right? We've seen that. We've seen those slides many times. When you look across civilizations, you see that the civilizations really end up breaking up into two subspecies, subcategories, which end up warring against each other. And these are, of course, the subcategories. So we see in America, for example, conservatism and liberal progressivism. In other words, you can see collectivism, which is liberal progressivism. It's also become socialism, fascism. Communism is a type of liberal progressivism. All those things fall under collectivism. On the other side, we see individualism, or we see by your works, whatever you reap should be yours. If you worked for it, it should be yours. We see this big divide. We see conservatism versus liberalism, right? Or what we see progressivism in the modern day, we call it. But why is it so hard to convince somebody, for example, who is a liberal progressive to start thinking more conservatively? Why is it so hard? Because if you look at if it is a rational issue that they're thinking about, then you should be able to convince them with rationale, right? With statistics, with proof. You should be able to show that, for example, the Second Amendment is necessary. Any of the cities which take away and control guns, take away guns from citizens, you have higher crimes and higher murder rates. Any of the cities which allow citizens, make it easier for citizens, law-abiding citizens, good guys, to have weapons to defend themselves, you'll see crime drop, right? That is a statistic. It's logical. It is real fact. Right, folks? But why is it so impossible? It is so impossible to try to convince a communist or a fascist that allowing the people to defend themselves is a fundamental right. Have you ever tried? Yes. It is so difficult. It's not rational, is it? It's not intellectual. It's not based on evidence. There's something deeper to this. We can say it's emotional. We can say maybe they have preconditioning. They've been indoctrinated by certain cultural spheres. We can say many things, but why is it? Why is it that civilization seems to always split into these two categories? Well, we're going to get into that today. We're going to get into that today. And I think God, when I started researching this and studying this, it started blowing my mind. When you look at what has happened, and I'm going to go through these slides very quickly until we get to the meat of it, but we see what happens with Family Fed. We see what the Han mother has done. She's done things which are totally, if you have any bit of rational mind or any bit of a intellect or any bit of a honor code, obviously she's doing things which she never could have done when Father was here, right? Like desecrating him or sitting in his throne, all these kind of things. Very obvious when he's here, didn't happen. But all of a sudden, as soon as Father goes, then you start seeing these things, and more. Of course, before we spoke out about it, people were kind of in the dark about it, about what she actually believes. We can see massive changes to the scripture. We can see massive changes to divine principle. Total switches of position, right? And we've seen this many times. In example after example, reversing the position of husband and wife, Adam and Eve, even to the point where they say that Adam is the one who fell with Satan first. One of the brothers made a very simple but very clear observation. Well, that means Satan fell with Adam first, and then since the fall was both sexual and spiritual, then that means Adam was a homosexual, is what they have to say. So Adam had a homosexual relationship with Satan, and then he tempted Eve, and then they had fallen children. Is now what they have to teach. Of course, we see removing Father, no more crown, and upon her head only sits the crown. And this is, of course, prophesying in Revelations as well. I sit enthroned as a queen, not as a widow, right? We've seen that scripture very clearly. We've seen how they have erased Father from the marriage blessing, from the blessing covenant. We've seen how their Trinity is saying that God and Father are actually inside a mother. Right? So anybody, this is beyond anybody with half a brain, seriously, with half a brain or half some rationale, who actually thinks and uses some cubic millimeters of that gelatinous mass right here. Anybody with just a tiny bit of functioning neurons in the brain can see this and say, well, that's quite different. That's quite different from what I learned in the principle or in the Bible. It's quite different. All these changes have been made, of course, you all know of them. People who are awake, they know. And people are becoming more and more awake. Hundreds across the world now, waking up very fast, just exponentially. Every week that goes by, more and more people are waking up because the devil is a liar, and the truth speaks. We, of course, see in her most recent speech, she claims that all of Christian history, it's right here, all of Christian history, 그런 점에서 결론적으로 말하자면 한반도는 재림메시아 독생녀 탄생시킨 나라이기 때문에 etc. etc. So all of Christian history is for the Lord of the second advent, the only begotten daughter. Okay? Now, we knew she believed this of herself 3 years ago because she would say it to us, but it was behind. It was within so many layers above normal members that they could never see it. They were hiding this truth. And she had, of course, told us this, what she had believed, that she had believed she is Messiah and that she is God. And we told her, you cannot say that. But now it's coming out. The more she speaks, the more her belief, her theology, what she actually believes comes out. And it's very interesting because now the family Fed is in a situation where they have to deny what the Han mother is saying. They're in a situation, this came out in Korean, and it's on the internet too, and we've downloaded a copy, so, nice luck in trying to erase it. It's not going to be erased. We have a copy of it. And it came out, and then they translated it into Japanese. They translated that. Then when it translated to English, it came out. All of Korean history is for the Lord of the Second Advent and the only begotten daughter. Whereas when the Korean doesn't say that. Then the Japanese translators went back to the American translation, saw that America put an and in there, and then they changed their Japanese translation to say and. And they got caught with their pants down. Because now, you see how this organization is collapsing? They're such frauds that they are now in the business of defrauding the Han mother, who actually thinks they're working for her. This is what is meant by the old phrase, there is no honor in a den of thieves. You trust thieves, you're going to get backstabbed one day. Guaranteed. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not day after tomorrow, but one day when you are no longer necessary for them, they will backstab you. And now she's in a position, which we told her about 3 years ago. We were the only ones to warn her that if she trusts these thieves, she will be destroyed. We were the only ones. Ostracized, excommunicated, fired from all positions because of that. Because we told her the truth. And now they're caught with their pants down, trying to rape Japanese sisters again. Caught with their pants down. Trying to fool Japanese members. American members trying to rape you. They got caught with their pants down. They are now in the business of changing and redacting and hiding what Mother is actually saying. Because even they know that it's false. Even they know that it's ridiculous. And that even though they know that she's making her own cult is what she's doing. Of course, now the Kim Hyung is now turned totally against her, as we told her. When she fired us, when she started coming after us after the hospital incident, she said to us very clearly, she said to us, you, meaning Kuk Jin and I, myself, you kids don't know anything. I, Kim Hyung-nam, can do 100 times more than you can do. And I control Kim Hyung-nam, is what she said. I control Kim Hyung-nam. In other words, that she is in control. We told her, we said, Mother, do you not remember the Kwak group? Right? The Kwak group was given all these prizes for the ideal family and ideal second generation. And then they end up stealing $1 billion plus or whatever from Father. Totally disobeying him. So we reminded her, do you not remember that occurrence? That may happen to you. She said, absolutely not. I am different from Father, and that will not happen to me. Well, a short 3 years later, now it's happening to her. Very simple. Kim Hyung-nam is now setting up her own organization, her own churches, and she will start recruiting. And she is going after Japanese members because she wants to extort from them and exploit them. Of course, because she is in the same business as the Han mother in exploiting people for luxurious lifestyles. And that's exactly what is prophesied in the book of Revelation. So it's very interesting. We talked about this last week. Why is there's this amazing cultural distaste and or ambivalence towards saying, wait a minute, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. Isn't it interesting in our church? It's almost like you cannot criticize what she's doing because she's a woman. If you criticize her, well, then you're against all women. And if you criticize her, you hate all women. and you want to control all women. You see what I mean? What's happening is that Satan is pulling the social, cultural milieu or the belief systems of the social, cultural realm around us, which is of a very prominent nature as, these kind of principles. Men are the root of greed. Men are the root of selfishness. Men are the root of lust. Men are the root of destruction of families. Men are the root of aggression. Men are the root of violence, war, etc. Women are the root of charity. They're the root of selflessness. Women are pure. Women are protectors of lives and families. Women is the root of healthy communication. Women are the root of nonviolence and the root of peace. We talked about these things last week, that this is the social, cultural sphere that we live in the West, right? You can't, generations of men have been brought up to be scared to make women feel uncomfortable. Even though they're doing terrible, irresponsible things, right? You're supposed to shut up about it because it's your mom. Even though she's on heroin or drugs or sleeping around or whatever, it's always the man's fault, right? We are in a state, in psychology, this is called female responsibility avoidance syndrome. Female responsibility avoidance syndrome. So we have this cultural belief system which is pushed, and of course we know the roots of these things, who pushes these philosophies, for what purpose they push them. We're going to get into that a little more. But we have this milieu that's around us. And it's fascinating that people feel that they cannot say right is right and wrong is wrong because she's a woman. They feel intimidated because they've been taught from a young age, if you make an evil woman uncomfortable, you are evil. And that women cannot be evil. Women are all good. They're all victims. Women have no responsibility. It's always the men's fault. And this is reflected in our justice courts. This is reflected in divorce courts, child custody courts. Every place in society you'll see this, it is manifested. This is reality. And this is why you have a generation of younger men in college who don't want to date women because they're scared of them. They're scared of them. At any moment, their life can be ruined because this girl makes an allegation. Harvard released a paper on that college young males don't want to date females. They would rather not deal with any of the anxiety and deal with porn. Right? So basically, women are being replaced, and men are then outsourcing relationships to pornography. And this is a real sociological phenomenon. All right, so we have all those kind of things. We have this general milieu in the culture where mental breakdown, mental anxiety, mental menstrual cramps, whatever it was, what's the last one? Menopause, all these. Did you know that everything starts with men? He, ho, ho, ho. See, and it's not really only against men, is it? It's also against little boys. See, because the lie is that no, why can't you men take it? Right? But really what it's against little boys, little children. Boys are stupid, run them over. Boys are stupid, throw rocks at them. He, ho, ho, ho. And I explained this in the Korean service. I said, let's look at the stats. Let's look at the real stats. There is a social cultural sphere that propagandizes that women are the root of peace. They're the root of nonviolence. If all women had power, it would be a peaceful world. How many heard that? Well, let's look at the statistics. Women are responsible for over 50% of domestic violence incidents. It's actually 53.8%. 50+% of domestic violence cases are done by the hand and fists of women. Okay? That's reality. I said it like this in the Korean sermon. This is what I said. Okay. You cannot hit me, man, because you're bigger than me. Child, you're smaller than me. I can hit you. You cannot hit me, man, because you're bigger than me. Child, I'm bigger than you, so I can hit you. Do you understand that? You cannot hit me, man, because you're bigger and stronger than me. Little child, I can hit you because I'm bigger and stronger than you. Do you see the hypocrisy here? I'm sorry, ladies. The reality of the statistics is that women are reported, okay, to do more domestic violence than men. 80% of British moms hit their baby. 80% are hitting their babies, pounding them at 1 year old. 80%. Estimated 25% of women are pedophiles. Pedophiles are women, I'm sorry. Pedophiles are women. And a recent U.S. study shows middle-class mothers hit their babies, toddlers, on average over 900 times per year. In lower-income families, it's even higher. So on average, little babies are being smashed by whose fists? 900 times a year. Do you not think that, and of course there are studies that show very clearly, 3 to 5-year-olds who have been beaten or spanked by moms, more likely to be aggressive by the age of 9 compared to those who are not spanked by their mom. If the mom deals with them rationally, reasons with them, has different systems that help them learn consequences and to their behaviors, instead of just smacking them. So we see the reality. The reality is it's different from the cultural sphere that propagandizes that men are all evil, single moms are the superheroes, they're the real heroes and pillars of society, right? But the reality is what? The exact opposite. They are responsible for over 50% of the domestic violence cases. Now, this is very interesting because when you look at this, when we look at civilization, when we look at even principle, we could understand what, yes, there's this and that. We understand the divide between God's lineage and Satan's lineage. We understand that even the whole Bible is like a war between God's lineage and Satan's lineage, where God is trying to reclaim his lineage. Satan is trying to propagate his lineage. When you study biology, and this is amazing, there's one work that was written called The Psychology of Politics, and actually studied reproductive strategies. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. What they found was that when you look at any organism, whether it be bacteria, whether it be animals, and of course when you look at humans, they all follow certain reproductive strategies. Now these strategies are to what? Propagate their genes, right? The genes want to be reproduced, they want to stay alive, they want to continue on, right? So there's different types of reproductive strategy so that that species can continue to live on. So this is a biological hermeneutic. It's a biological way of understanding this. Why are there such massive splits between humanity, which are not based on rationale? They're not based on convincing somebody of the facts. It's emotional. It may be even deeper than that. It's even deeper than emotional. What they found is that there are two different types of strategies, two main types of strategies. One is called the R strategy of adaptation, and the other one is called the K strategy of adaptation. So let's look at the R strategy. R strategy, or the R-type gene set strategy of adaptation, is what? It is quantity over quality. It is like species like rabbits, mice, deer. They are species that thrive when there's an abundance of food. For example, there's a big field of grass, and these rabbits are on that grass, right? They are R gene set. They are R-type gene set, and they can get preyed upon by owls or foxes or wolves. Once in a while, there's an unpredictable nature to the predation. So they could be eating on some clovers, and all of a sudden, a fox comes out and takes them off, right? And they're gone, right? So in this unpredictable atmosphere where you don't know when you'll be preyed on, and you cannot fight against the predators, so you're really helpless, you develop what is known as an R-type gene set strategy. Your genes push you, essentially. They select out traits that will not participate in the R-type gene set strategy. And basically what it does, it says, hurry up and reproduce, get to sexual maturation faster, reproduce like wildfire, have sex with every other cute rabbit on the block, and have as many babies as you can. Because you don't know when you're going to get eaten. You better reproduce, have baby, 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 baby. Don't be monogamous. You just got to quickly spray. So this is the R-type strategy. Then there is a K-type strategy of adaptation in the gene set, which is quality over quantity. So when you look at species like lions or wolves or owls, this is a K-type strategy towards adaptation and survival. The K-type strategy embraces competition. The R-type strategy is averse to competition. They don't like competition. They don't need to compete. If a rabbit comes by and eats a big field, some new rabbit tribes come in, all right, I'll move over a little bit. You guys enjoy the food. But I may have sex with all of you later. Right? So the R-type strategy is promiscuous. It's trying to reproduce fast to keep that gene set alive quickly because they don't know when it will be taken out. Low investment, and it's also single parenting is the norm. When you look at rabbits, mice, deer, single parenting is the norm. They're not monogamous. They do not stay with one partner. They switch partners very, very, very quickly. Early sexual maturity and activity, and low loyalty to the in-group. They're not loyal to each other. If one gets eaten, the rabbit says, okay, that's fine. I just keep eating my clovers. I don't have to be faster than the wolf. I just have to be faster than Pierre, or I have to be faster than Richard. I don't have to be faster than the wolf. I don't need to be stronger than the wolf. I just got to be faster than these fools. Then I'll be alive. That's the strategy. That's the R-type strategy. K-type strategy embraces competition. It acknowledges there are threats in the world and there's competition. The K-type strategy also has delayed monogamous sexuality. They also have a high investment in their children. They have less children, and so they invest heavily in children. In other words, they value children. They invest a lot in their young. When you look at wolves particularly, yes, they look mean and scary, but if you're in the wolf pack, there's a lot of love coming from your parents. A lot of protection. High investment, dual parenting. Wolves are monogamous. They do not mate with other wolves. They stay together. That pack mentality. Late sexual maturity and activity, so they have lower sexual activity in terms of, with other partners. And they have high in-group loyalty, very loyal, and that's why they move in packs or prides or groups. They work together. They're more intelligent. They're more sophisticated. They're more complex species than rabbits, mice, and deer, etc. R versus K-type selection. If an animal species lives under conditions where the resources are ample so that there are good opportunities for expansion, but where there are also considerable dangers such as predators, then it will be advantageous for this species to use most of its resources on breeding as fast as possible and spending few resources on each offspring. This is called R selection. The R is the mathematical symbol for the rate of reproduction. R selection causes the evolution of small animals growing fast and breeding fast. Examples are mice and insects. Isn't that interesting? Now, K-type selection. This happens when a species lives under conditions where the population is limited by scarce resources. If we're a pack of wolves and I have 20 wolves in my pack, and we have a certain area, and there's 20 new wolves come in, that ecosystem can only handle 20 wolves, right? So at some point, we're going to get rid of the other 20, or they're going to get rid of us, right? There's a K-type selection. Okay, so in the end, that ecosystem can only handle 20 wolves. In the end, there will only be 20 wolves, right? So in this type of condition, the capital K is a mathematical symbol for carrying capacity, i.e. the maximum number of individuals that the resources in a given habitat can continually sustain. K-selection leads to the evolution of big animals which breed slowly and utilize the given resources optimally, and which invest a considerable proportion of their resources in the care of their sparse offspring. If the animals under these conditions bred excessively, then they would have insufficient resources for nurturing each young, and they might overexploit their habitat to the point where the resources were exhausted. So K-selection is found in those animals that come last in the food chain or are the highest, closer to the apex of the animal kingdom. Okay? So they understand that there's scarcity in the world, and you just cannot exhaust everything, right? And they exhibit those kind of traits. R selection pressures, we talked about this. R selection realities is that there's early death in R selection type gene sets. Random environments are necessary to create R selection type gene sets. Lower population density, absence of competitive pressures. Rabbits, of course, docile, flee from danger, mate promiscuously, single mothers, no sexual restrictions, and no in-group preferences. Wolves, on the other hand, which are K-type, they're sexually selective, monogamous, invest heavily in cubs, oppose early mating, and compete in packs. So the K-selection, the prey is much more rare than plants. Rabbits or R-type species usually eat things that are very abundant, grass and these kind of things. But catching a rabbit is much harder than catching a clover. Catching a mouse is way harder than catching a dandelion, right? So it requires group thinking, it requires a high level of sophistication. And excessive breeding in lions brings starvation. If you breed too much, if you increase your population too much, you're going to end up killing yourself. You're not going to feed your children. You're not going to be able to feed your whole tribe. So there's a sense of responsibility that has to be thought out of. Thus, competition selection defines reproduction capacity. Hunting is vastly more complex, etc. The K-selection are what happens in the K-selection if there's a promiscuous wolf. And these low investment wolves will be outcompeted. If there's a wolf that is trying to breaking all the monogamous relationships, and it's creating instability within the tribe pack, breaking up the order, breaking up the efficiency of going out and catching hard prey, that animal will be outcompeted. The other males will reprimand it, put it back in line, and or ostracize it. Right? And or ostracize it. So if it doesn't line up, it'll be ostracized. Okay? So there's a very strong sense of abiding laws, abiding codes, abiding honor codes. There's a K-type gene selections have warrior codes. Very important to honor what you say and honor your promises. K-type selection also has monogamy. To monopolize high-value mates combines with high investing parenting. So K-type species invest heavily in their children. Invest heavily. Potential mating partners must prove worth. So sexuality is delayed to establish fitness. You will see in K-type species, males will many times display themselves and or fight with other males. Right? Like, for example, cuttlefish is a great example. Cuttlefish, the females will lie on the bottom of the ocean, and the males will come up and fight. And the one who wins gets a girl. But there are some sneaky cuttlefish. There's some sneaky cuttlefish. They're smaller than the bigger males. So what they'll do is they'll put in their tentacles, pretend to be females. And they'll act effeminate. And they'll float down to the bottom while the males are fighting. And they'll start mating with the females. I'm not joking. Do your research on cuttlefish. In the end, it is to preserve the R-type gene set, which avoids competition, is scared of competition, usually cannot compete against strong males, and so thus tries to find other deviant ways to compete. Or create subgroups, like punk or goth or something else, subgroup, where they can be an alpha, because they can't really compete with the real alphas. Isn't that interesting? So these type of animals, like the cuttlefish, you'll see K selection and you'll see R selection inside of them do very sneaky, sneaky things to keep their genes reproducing. K selection produces packs with strong in-group loyalties. R selection, prey exhibit little to no sadness when one of their group is killed. K selected animals are generally more complex. So, how does this relate to mankind? Well, mankind also has R-selected gene sets and K-selected gene sets. It's very interesting because in the end, this is not only biology, this is genetics. What was Father talking about? Blood? Lineage? What was he talking about? Blood? What was he talking about? Passing down blood lineage? Well, isn't it interesting that our environment, or what we can receive from our parents genetically are passed on, obviously we know that, but also what is in our environment and the choices we make also get passed down. This is the field called epigenetics. And epigenetics shows that when you have two different twins, one is raised here, one is raised there, in totally different social environments, they're totally different people. By the time they grow up, they have totally different genomes. They're different people. They should have the same DNA because it's the same DNA that got split. They should have the exact same DNA, but they don't. The DNA has changed. It has transformed. It's interesting when we think about the fall then. When Eve succumbed to Satan's temptation and she fell, that decision then affects her DNA. Isn't that incredible? The field of genetics and epigenetics shows now that a spiritual fall, is how we call it, can change your physical DNA. Whoa. That's pretty deep, man. Okay. No, I'm not from California. Strategies can change. Like, for example, losing fur, walking upright, break growth, etc. When people multiply, R gave way to K. K's build civilization. They work together. They bring their intellect together. One great example was, for example, antelope. They're usually an R-selected species. So antelope go out, and they're on the savannah, and they say, well, there's 100 antelope and one lion in here. Okay? So let's all go eat, and don't worry about the lion. The probability of you getting in is just 1 out of 100. And they don't always catch you all the time, so it's probably less than that, okay? So stop freaking out about it. Just enjoy the moment, enjoy the grass. Just enjoy it. Don't worry about the lion. He's not going to really bother you. If he does bother you, make sure you're faster than Richard or you're faster than Pierre. Because we can't do anything to fight the lion. We can't stand up and think about it and attack the lion. No. As soon as it comes out, run. If a baby dies, so what? We'll make another one. You just make new ones. We have a lot of babies. If one of the old dies, so what? They were going to go anyways. Right? We just eat. Let's eat. And then let's have sex. And then let's eat and have sex. And we'll change that once in a while and have sex and then eat. And let's just have a good time. Is what the R-type antelope will do. Now let's say there's K-type consciousness or people that all of a sudden woke up as antelope on the savannah. So this is what the K-type would do if they woke up as antelope on the savannah. They would say, oh, Shemitah. Wait a minute. We got lions in this area. I can't see them, but I know they're here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out in the morning. But what we're going to do, all the strong males, we're going to go out and surround the herd. Then the children, the women on the inside, and the children on the first inside. And if a lion starts coming out, the women and the children will start running this way, running away from it. And all the males will get our horns and stab that thing to death. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go find that lion pride and the cubs, and we're going to stomp them to death too. So there's no more, in a 100-mile radius, there's no more lions. And that I can have some peace with my family, and my children can eat their food. This is a K-type selection. And that is why K-type selection, gene set, always, 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 always build civilization. Never R sets. R sets require K-type civilizations to prey off of. Okay? So K-type gene sets always build society. Always. One example, for example, is tribes flee competition, resource-scarce environments. There are R-types in the population, and R-types avoid confrontation at at all costs. Because they know if they competed with strong males, they would get destroyed. Many times R-types were never good in sports or did not play sports. So they're actually scared of competing with strong men. So what R-types will do, and the characteristic of this gene set, is instead of fight or compete, they will avoid competition and try to find a new place to settle. But it's interesting, as they find a new place, which is less populated, and probably more scarce in resources, because all the other plentiful resource places have been taken over by K-types, the R-types will find themselves in Siberia, or they'll find themselves in harder climates. And in order to cope with that harder climate, their gene set has to switch from R-type gene set to K-type gene set now. Because now they're in an environment which is more dangerous, has scarcer resources. Now they actually start thinking. Is that interesting? So as they move to colder climates, harsher climates, the R-types who actually ran away from the K-type cities or the civilizations have to create a new civilization. But in order to do that, they have to change into K-type thinking. They can't just say, just be in the moment and let's eat and love and, well, what is it? What is it? Make love, not war, right? No, now you're in Siberia. Now you're in Siberia. You can't say that to anybody anymore. You'll be dead. You'll be hypothermic. You'll be shivering on the ground. You'll be dead as ice. So you better get your things together. You better start organizing. You better start thinking. You better start recognizing there is a threat here. You better start building teams, gardens, planning. Don't eat your seed crop now because next summer and spring you're going to be dead. Right? You have to start thinking. You can't just live in the moment. You can't just be a rabbit. And then that civilization will grow and start expanding. There is you end up raising crops, animals, need to educate. You can domesticate animals. You can raise crops. You have to invest highly in your children that you have because they're going to be the ones who can carry out the civilization and or build it. You have to instill within them an understanding of, K-type selection, embrace competition, don't be scared, face the animals, right? Face the predators, whatever. You have to build that civilization from the ground up. There's a division of labor, promotes cooperative assertiveness. There's win-win, looking for win-wins in the K-type world. And there's ostracism. If in the past, before we had the welfare state, think about how there's two different types of poor that were described by some philosophers. There were the deserving poor and the undeserving poor. There was the deserving poor, which was what? It was when, like a 20-year-old mom, she's got 5 kids, she's married, but her husband died in a coal mining cave or something. Or he fell off the boat and he sunk in the water and he's dead. That is terrible, right? So in a K-type scenario, all the K-types would say, whoa, that's a deserving poor lady. Let's go help her. We have to help her. We have to help her. That's why, for example, conservatives donate to charity way more than liberal progressives. Even though liberal progressives always talk about charity, conservatives statistically donate more money because they're K-type selection genes. So when you see somebody in genuine need, you have genuine compassion, you say, oh, shoot, we got to help that lady. She just lost her husband. He had a fishing boat accident. And now she's all alone, 5 kids. Man, we got to help her. Come on, guys. Let's group together. Let's find out a strategy to help this lady out. Right? Now, you have that same scenario, but you have a young lady who has 5 different children with 5 different men. Now that's a different story now. Because she has been making choices, right? Because women are the guardians of sex. I know the modern world always says it's the man's fault. Women are the guardians of sex. Right? So if you're sleeping with stupid men who are wooing you and seducing you and sleeping and trashing you, if you keep repeating that, that is because you are stupid. You are doing stupid behavior and you're running away from responsibility, right? And what will the welfare state do? They do what is known as sex subsidies. So even though a single mother has children with 5 different fathers, the state will become their daddy and keep funding her. That's called sex subsidies, incentivizing free sex. And that's how Lucifer destroys the family. So in a case where a single mom in the past has sex with multiple relationships, have all these babies with different, she would not get support. She would have much less support unless she showed that she was actually starting to realize, take ownership of her bad actions, realize, stop blaming all the men, realizing that she has to take responsibility. And there's steps, of course, to then, come back and then be redeemed and for other people to support you, right? Like churches or etc. So R-type selection hates ostracism. Hates ostracism. And we're going to get into a little more as we start comparing these things on main social issues. Okay? So in essence, we have the R versus K selection. Look at the difference between R and K selection. R organisms have short lifespan. They're weak, small, they're vulnerable, fast maturation, prone to take risks, opportunistic exploiters, less intelligent experience, strong sex drives, reproduce at an early age, large number of offspring, small relative size at birth, little care for offspring, and have a variable population size. K-type organisms live long, they're large, they're robust, well protected, they have slow maturation, they're risk averse, they're consistent exploiters, not opportunistic exploiters. More intelligent experience, they have a weaker sex drive, they reproduce at a later age, smaller number of offspring, large relative size at birth, much care for the offspring, stable population size. So this is where epigenetic comes in. The R and K strategies do not need to be fixed in the genes or the nature. They can also be epigenetic shaped by early experience, nurture. This is why it's so important to understand the statistics of domestic violence. If the feminists are so against violence, the culture of violence, then they should be instructing women to stop beating their babies. If you're against violence, you should be, and you're against bigger things, beating up smaller things, right? That same principle has to be applied to you then. So don't beat up smaller things. Right? Right? So epigenetics, how we live, what choices we make huge impacts on our genes. Check out some of this data. This is going to blow your mind. Watch this. Watch some of this data. Children subjected to chronically high levels of stress, such as stress hormones, will be driven to develop into R-type strategists, focusing on quick reproduction rather than long-term maturation. Remember, R-type gene sets require unpredictable situations. So R-type gene sets flourish when it's unpredictable. If you have an abusive father, if you have an abusive mother. If you have no father, that's also unpredictable, right? That's also an atmosphere where the R-type gene set will flourish. This can be achieved by higher levels of sex hormones, testosterone in men, estrogen in women, leads to early sexual maturity. Did you know children who had 2 parents and reached puberty at a certain age, then those parents divorced, their younger siblings reached puberty faster? Did you know that? Because those stress hormones force the body to start adapting and start developing quick, because it's an unpredictable environment. Shoot, I got to quickly reproduce. So I can keep my gene alive. I may die. This environment is so unpredictable, I may die, right? So biologically, you hit puberty faster when your parents divorce. You start maturing sexually faster. See, it's not that simple. See, it's not that simple, ladies. What you decide, men too, what you decide, you impact your children. You impact your children. You will start ravaging their gene set by the decision you make if they're bad, and you will start supporting those gene sets if the decisions are good. On the negative side, high levels of sex hormones are associated with a higher probability of heart disease, cancer, etc. People raised in stressful environments, lower life expectancy, shorter, more likely to become obese, poor health, etc., etc., etc. Tend to be viewed as adults more quickly, less well-educated, have more earlier sexual contacts, early pregnancies, larger families, and there is a correlation between IQ and wealth. So raising your children to try to, study and be smart, that has a direct correlation with their future productivity. Direct. Okay, so that's why parents who are investing in their children, right, and trying to make them, not with a slave master helicopter mom style, right, but encouraging them to be all they can be in many fields, well, those kids have a higher probability of succeeding and continuing on their gene set. It's interesting because like these genes they're almost alive. Your blood is almost alive, folks. We think of blood lineage as something that's just passed down. This thing is alive, you understand? It is alive. The blood lineage we have is alive. And look at what type was Satan. Was he an R-type strategist or was he a K-type strategist? How did he convince Eve? He said, oh, you can eat. Eve said herself, I can eat from all these trees of the garden. There's abundance here. There's abundance here. I can eat of all these trees. So what if I eat of that tree? It's not going to be a huge thing. I've got tons of resources. It's not going to make a big deal. What type of strategist is that? Is that long-term planning, long-term thinking? That's R-type strategist. Satan instilled within the genome R-type strategy. He introduced that, and that's why we have R-type strategy, which destroys civilizations. Let's look at the amygdala. This is a part of the brain, these little two P's in your brain. Some people say your brain is like the size of a pea. Well, it is, kind of. The amygdala is that small. Listen to this. This is phenomenal. Listen to this. Everybody knows Pavlov's dog study, right? So you got the dogs. You hit a button, bam, you hit a button, right? And you shock them at the same time, right? So at first they're not scared of the bam, they're not scared of the beep. But once you start shocking them at the same time of the beep, then they start associating the shock with the beep, right? So even though you don't shoot any electricity, you just press the beep button, the dogs freak out, right? They think they're being shocked. And they actually feel the pain of being shocked. Right? You heard of this, right? Oh my gosh, listen to this. They've now done epigenetic studies, same type of study on mice, which show that those mice that were traumatized by sound, just like Pavlov's dogs, they're children when they're born. When you hit the beep button, the children have never been shocked, right? They've never been shocked by electricity. When you hit the beep button, the child feels the electrical pain. Do you see? Do you see how this is all about blood lineage? The amygdala is your threat recognition center. It is a place in your brain that can recognize a threat and then prepare for that threat. Okay? That is what the amygdala is. As soon as it recognizes a threat, like a panther running on your back, and you hear a little twig snap, right before that happens, well, when you hear the twig snap, you may turn around the next time, right? You're going to turn around and say, ooh, panther, where are you? I heard you, right? That is your amygdala training you. It's instant memory, implicit memory. It's training you to say, wait a minute, there's a bad outcome with that twig snapping, you better turn around, right? Right? The amygdala is your threat recognition center. It releases fear hormones that produce fear, which are good because then you can determine whether you're going to fight the thing or you're going to run from the thing. Okay? Look at this. People in high stress, who have been raised in high stress families have amygdala dysfunction, smaller amygdalas. If you are raised in a household where you have high stress, the highest stress, remember the highest stress is where there's no father. That's the highest stress. So even though your parents fight, you're better off than having no dad. I know kids like to complain about their parents fighting. You're better off than no dad. Okay? They have smaller amygdalas. They have smaller ability to recognize threats. They get desensitized to threats. And as they grow up, they're not able to recognize that there can be threats against me. So that also shows up in social policy as well. Dysfunction, Kluver-Bucy syndrome, human syndrome produced by deficient amygdala function associated with docility and rabid sexuality. Make peace, make love, not war. Right? The whole hippie movement. That is basically an R-type movement. That is where you have total docility and you have rabid sexuality. So 1960s is basically an R-type generation. That's why you have the baby boomers, of course, who put the whole country in debt, and now all the young kids have to pay for them because they were so irresponsible. Sorry, baby boomers. Associated with lower in-group preferences, empathy, antisocial personality disorder, other manifestations of psychopathy, lack of empathy. When your amygdala is low, small, and you can't recognize threats, you also cannot empathize with people. And that is one of the definitions of psychopathy, psychopaths. You cannot empathize with people. So you have a very skewed sense of empathy, which we're going to get into in just a second. So our experience then, this is talking about the gene set, like the Pavlov dogs, where these epigenetic traits are transmitted intergenerationally. So it's not only Eve is making the decision to fall and be envious of God and to want God's power, she's not only making that decision, she's now passing that down epigenetically, transgenerationally. Just like Pavlov's dogs will pass down fear of the buzz button. Do you get it, folks? This blood lineage. So the conservative theory says we need strong families. We need strong families because they'll produce childhood success. Childhood success will produce pursuit of competition. Pursuit of competition will produce tremendous, yes, there'll be winners and losers, but generally the society will become wealthier. There'll be more innovations. iPad, Apple, all that stuff comes in competition, not by government intrusion. It comes by competition. So K-type personalities embrace competition. It's normal. It's okay. You won't die. If you lose, you won't die. Don't worry. Just keep trying. Right? It's not like, let's play a game and everybody gets a trophy. We don't want anybody to feel bad that they lost, right? You heard this in some of the liberal schools. You are programming children to become desensitized to reality. Okay, so strong families create childhood success, pursuit of competition, high investment in children because you know they're going to compete, so you want to invest in them highly. You want to try to get them educated. You want to speak to them rationally. You want to train them and discuss things with them so they can problem solve. And by the time they enter the market, then they're hired. They bring higher things to the market. They bring higher, right? Because they've had you as good parents. Pursuit of competition. Then you also accept there's inequality. Yes, you accept inequality. Some people win, some people lose. But overall, if we let people compete, we get iPad. And we get things that change the world completely. Okay? We don't only get, communist supermarkets. We get organic supermarkets too, if the market wants it. Okay? So acceptance of inequality, yes. You can go as far as your talents take you. All right, and then free market, and then the free market stimulates strong families, because strong families are the most efficient and effective breeding ground to create new innovators, childhood success, new competitors that will bring new innovations, creativity to the market, etc. So this is the virtuous cycle. Liberal progressive theory is weak families. Single moms are the paradigm. Fathers out of the home. Single moms are better. Dads are terrible. Dads are destructive. They destroy families. They're alcoholics. They whip the kids. Even though domestic violence is 53.8% moms, bad men are still bad. So we need to get them out of the house. Right? Then you have weak families. You have childhood failure. You have a whole generation of children who have been targets of the welfare state, who now have kids. They never grew up with a dad. They have more criminality, lower life expectancy, more divorce, more suicide, more violent crime, everything. So you have weaker families, you have childhood failure. Then you have children who also avoid competition. They've been trained that whatever they do, you're going to get a subsidy. If I have licentious sex and I have irresponsible sex, I'm going to get a sex subsidy. Right? I can sleep with whoever I want. I do whatever I want. So what do you promote? You promote a sex-subsidized culture, which leads to free sex and breakdown of husband and wife marriage. Competition avoidance. Equality of outcomes. You will always hear the little progressive side screaming, everything should be equal. The brain surgeon who works 25 years to learn how to do microsurgery should make as much as me, even though I smoke pot behind 7-Eleven every day. Right? That's what it is. That's what it is. Communism is that. The man who smokes pot behind 7-Eleven every day gets paid the same amount as the guy who broke his booty, working to be a brain surgeon. Is that fair? Of course not fair. So they rail against inequality. Inequality is bad. We want to get rid of inequality. We want equality. Right? Really what they want is, I don't want anybody to live better than me. Satisfied with a lower level of income or a living for everybody, as long as nobody does better than me. This leads to what? Socialism. Which then leads to weak families, state becomes a daddy, destruction, childhood failure, competition avoidance, and you see every single communist society collapse and be destroyed. Economically, of course. Proof is in pudding. Our organisms. Again, low investment in offspring, no monogamy, pair bonding. Quality of offspring is unimportant. Little differentiation in quality of children. Offsprings which interfere with more offspring are a negative. Offspring are not precious. In our type gene set, like rabbits, our offspring are not precious because you can make so many of them. So what if they're aborted? So what? Make another one. What? That's not a child. What is that? It's just a human cell blob, right? It's a human cell. It's just a biological mass of cells. It's not a child. Where do you hear that argument? You hear that on the liberal progressive side, the communist side. High sex drive, more children than needed. Parental preferences vastly outstrip child preferences. So parental preferences, big men can't beat me up, but I can beat up small children. You understand that? Parent preferences trump child preferences. Right? Children don't want to get beat up. If you're a little boy that small, you'll be beaten up by this giant lady over you every day. I'm telling you, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. And you grow up your whole life being scared to make women feel uncomfortable, because if you make them feel uncomfortable, you've been abused, you will get it. Right? K organisms, high investment offspring, monogamy, pair bonding, quality of offspring essential, high differentiation in quality. K organisms think children are precious. They don't want to just make another one. They think each child must be developed to its full potential. It's precious. We do high investment in children. K types actually have generally less children than R types. Babies are worshipped. Babies are seen as precious, divine. Most K-types are religious. Child preferences vastly outstrip parent preferences. If the child is screaming because it's tired, it's a little baby, like, a little 2-month-old, and it's crying because it needs to be breastfed, you're not going to say, shut up, and send it to the foster home or whatever, right? K-type people will Go for the baby and say, oh, I'm very tired, but all right, baby, come here, feed you. Right? You annoying little blob, I'm going to get rid of you. No, they don't do that. When you look at economic versus sexual freedom, on the issue of sexual freedom versus economic freedom, what do R-type organisms say? Well, R-type organisms have higher sex drive. They're more licentious. They have more sexual partners. They like exploring sexuality. So they like homosexual sex, different types of sexuality. They embrace all that, right? Little capacity to compete in the economic free market. They're not competitors. They've never competed against strong competitors. So thus they prefer sexual liberty to economic freedom. I'd rather give up all my rights, but be able to have sex with whoever I want, than be faithful and have my rights. So for example, you will see R-type organisms like the liberal progressive camps, communism camps, socialist camps, support sexual liberation in exchange for economic rights taken away. They prefer sexual subsidies to low taxes. Instead of being taxed less, they would rather have families be subsidized, have sex subsidies. So they would rather support the single mom to just get sex subsidies instead of having her be responsible and deal with charities to get help if she's been irresponsible with her sexuality. They prefer government policies which lower sexual standards and or hypersexualize at an early age and reduce inhibitions. They reward irresponsibility. You know, Planned Parenthood, of course, has been caught for that. Also been caught for funding sex programs in schools in Chicago. They're teaching 5-year-old children what masturbation is, what, sexual organs are, etc. 5-year-old children in Chicago, public schools. So they support policies which reduce sexual standards. Why? Because why? Why do they do that? Think about it from the gene set perspective. They want to reproduce. They want to continue their gene set, but they can't compete in a fair way. They can't compete in a fair way with stronger, more accomplished males, right? So what will they do? Well, let's lower all the standards. So then the girls won't look so high at these guys, and they'll go, maybe they'll like me more. It's all about sex in the end. The gene set, blood lineage, it's all about what? Absolute sex versus free sex. Isn't that interesting, folks? All connected. They're very willing to trade economic freedoms for sexual freedoms. Look at K organisms. They have lower sex drives, less thirsty for variety or different types of sexuality. They have a high capacity to compete in the free market. They would rather have economic freedom. Because economic freedom, but think about also K-types organisms too, so they would rather have economic freedom because they can compete better. They know they can beat their competition. Maybe they won't be the best, but they know they can compete. And those competitions bring access to the cheerleader, to the whatever, You get greater access to higher quality partners. Which, of course, you want to bond in monogamous relationships with, because that will create the best environment for your children, which will continue your gene line and your gene set. You see what I mean? It's all back to the genes, to the blood lineage, folks. Isn't that interesting? They prefer low taxes to sexual subsidies, since far more likely to accumulate sexual market value resources. They reject government policies which lower sexual standards and reduce inhibitions, punishes irresponsibility. So in a free society, people punish K-type people, K-type civilizations punish irresponsibility, not by just cutting their heads off. That's how the liberal media always presents K-type people. Oh, you're ostracized, off with your head. No, that's not how it worked. K-type societies punish you by ostracism. If you continue to sleep around, and you've been warned, if you continue to be irresponsible and break the honor codes of our group, well, then we're going to ostracize you. We're not going to kill you. We're going to ostracize you. But why is that scary, folks? Why is that scary to people like who are our organisms? What does ostracism mean? Oh, okay, it means you're alone, but what more does it mean? It doesn't mean physical death. It means what? Gene death. That's how you eliminate those type of bad behavior genes, right? For example, we looked at the wolves, right? Promiscuous wolves would be pushed out, and their gene set would die off. Do you see what I mean? So literally, the R set is fighting for its life. That's why they hate ostracism. They hate it. What? I can be ostracized for being irresponsible? What? Are you kidding me? You're not going to pay me for being irresponsible? I hate that. I hate it. They hate it. Why? Because it means death to their gene set. Isn't that interesting? It means death to that gene set. Whoa. K organisms, lower sex, the high capacity to compete in free market. Of course, married people who are in strong monogamous marriages have more sex than single dating people. We have way more sex than you and much better sex too. Thank you. Economic freedom, bisexual access to higher, etc., prefers lower taxes, rejects government policies that lower sexual standards, very, very willing to trade sexual freedoms for economic freedoms, since competition enhances high quality sexual access to better partners, better, more trustworthy women. Women who are high quality, they have values, they have an honor code that they live by, right? Any man want a woman who has no values and sleeps around with all the men and says, whoop-de-doo, oh, I'm sorry, it was your fault. Any man want that? No. Right? So, K organisms on economic sexual freedom, you can see very clearly what is more towards free sex, what is more towards absolute sex or marriage. Radical feminism, R-type organisms, promotes hostility towards men. Breeds R-set gene set from constant danger. Remember, the R gene set is breeded. It multiplies when there's constant danger, when there's threats that are all around, and when it's unpredictable. That's when the R-type gene set flourishes. So, the best way to make it very unpredictable is to get rid of the dads. Because if you get rid of the fathers, you're going to be creating a very unpredictable environment. And then those children will be reproducing R-type gene sets. Get it? So you got to get rid of the dads because they are in the way. They're in the way. It promotes masculinity among women. Fathers are bad. Women are super women. You can do it all. You go out and, do it all. You don't need a man. Girl, you don't need a man. Right? You see this in popular culture all the time, right? You don't need a man. Men are all dogs. Must promote government resources transfers to pretend men aren't needed. So R-type organisms always promote government transfer of resources. Always promote it. Because in order to say, because you have to break up the most efficient unit, which is the family. Daddy, mommy, family is the most efficient unit to create childhood success. So you have to break that up. In order to break that up, you can't pay for it. How are you going to pay for it? You're going to pay for it by using force. Government equals force. Using force, somebody else's guns, the government's guns, to force people to transfer money to you. To why? Why? What's the purpose? Why? To continue your gene set. Isn't that interesting? Opposes slut shaming. R-type behavior. Oh my gosh, you can't call a woman a slut, even though she's having sex with every man on the block. Right? K-type people, shut up! You're a slut. You sleep with everybody, you are a slut. You better recognize it, you better change. Otherwise, nobody's going to want to be with you. I don't care if it hurts your feelings, that's what you are. You're deciding to do that, right? It's reality. R-type say, no, don't be mean. Don't be mean. Sleep around a slut, don't be mean. Subsidies. She's poor, she's the victim. The men are all running away, they're having sex with her, leaving their sperm and her running away. It's all their fault. Denies responsibility to women. Again, female responsibility avoidance syndrome. Denies responsibility to women. Women have no responsibility. Always a man's fault. Promotion of institutional sexism. There's a patriarchy out there that wants us to destroy women. There's an institutional sexism. You must buy into that. Right? They always promote it. K-type organisms promote affection for men. They understand the value of fathers in the home. They understand that having a father in home, as opposed to not having a father in home, is the single most predictor for a stable life. Having a father in the home. Yes, a father, a daddy. Single moms cannot do it alone. God didn't make you that way. You can't do it alone. You are going to reach out to government as your daddy if you think you can do it alone. They promote affection for men. They understand that men play a very important role in the family structure. They accept differentiation among the sexes. When there's males in any species that are able to provide for the youth, then the females can differentiate from that species or differentiate from that sex and do things that are not necessarily related to survival. So, for example, beautifying themselves or other things that we consider more feminine, right? And not just hunter-gatherer, hunter-gatherer. Everybody's hunter-gatherer, right? Ladies too, they're hunter-gatherer, hunter-gatherer. I don't need a bra, hunter-gatherer, right? No men are needed for the K gene set. Or K organisms, no. Men are needed for the K gene set. So they don't want government power. They know men are necessary. They know men provide a critical element in the family. Critical. Statistically, the most critical element for childhood success. They know it's essential to ostracize R-type behavior. So if people are being irresponsible, like the cuttlefish that sneaks down to the ladies while the men are competing, and then there's this deviant little, deceitful little R-type cuttlefish that sneak down and start raping the girls. Once you get caught, you're dead. Right? K-types will say, you doing that, we're gonna whip you. We're gonna punish you. We're gonna ostracize you, you little deceitful, slimy cuttlefish. Right? That's what they do. You're not having a fair fight. You're not having it. You're sneaking down and raping the girls. You're going to be out. We will ostracize you, and your genes will die. Gene death. That's why it's a blood war. It's a war to kill off either an R gene. R genes wants to kill off K genes. K genes wants to kill off R genes. Blood war. It's a lineage war. It's an actual war, literally trying to kill off the other gene set. Think about that in terms of lineage. So K-type cultures promote male and female responsibility and childhood responsibility as well. And there's a denial of institutional sexism, okay? This imaginary structure of sexism does not exist. This is a propaganda tool to get you to give your goods up, right? So they know what the reason for propaganda, R-types use propaganda for. On gun control, look at R-type organisms. On gun control, physical aggression is suicide for R-type gene set because they know they cannot compete with strong K-types. So physically they know they're dead if they compete with them, because they're usually weaker, did less well in sports, maybe didn't play any combat sports or hard sports, so maybe are scared of strong competitors. So physical aggression is suicide for the R-type gene set. Verbal abuse is preferred, right? You do something wrong, you disagree with me, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you are a bigot and a racist, you're a white supremacist, right? Right? They prefer verbal abuse to actually saying, okay, well, you insulted me like that, let's take it outside. Right? You want to see how good you are, let's take it outside. Right? So they like constant danger, feeds the R-type gene set. Constant danger feeds the R-type gene set. That's why, think about it. In order to preserve their gene set, they must disarm the population. Because that creates a very, very unstable situation for the population, because criminals get all the weapons. Get it? So because criminals have all the weapons, it's very unstable. And that is perfect for the R-type gene set. That's where the R-type gene set can continue to multiply. Isn't that interesting? Since everyone is equal, everyone's equal. We don't like inequality. We don't like when somebody makes more than this person because of his hard work or because he put more and didn't smoke pot and do cocaine as much, right? We don't like that. Everybody's equal. So what do they talk about? Criminals elicit empathy. We should be compassionate to the criminals too. They're all the same. It could have been me. It could have been you. They think everybody's the same. When actually you understand the R and K type gene set, everybody's not the same. Everybody is not the same. They're unwilling to compete in the equal contest. So they use politics, government, they use force, they use police with guns, rather than risk themselves to go. So you never will see a liberal say, okay, I'm going to come to your house and take your guns. Because what will the K-type people say? Come and take it, baby. That's what they'll say. So the R-type organism will say, I'm going to use political power and government force to take your guns away, but I'm not going to do it myself. You get it? It's an R-type gene set. It's a cowardly gene set. Unwilling to compete in an equal contest, hope to put gun owners in conflict with the police. Why? Why do they want to put gun owners in conflict with the police? Think about it from a gene set perspective. The gun owners are K-type, and the police are K-type. Think about it. The gun owners are K-type, because they have a larger amygdala. They understand threat recognition. They know that they have to protect their families, right? So generally, they're a larger K-type population. Why do the R-type organisms and the liberal progressives always want to put the gun owners in conflict with police? Think about it. The police are K-types too. They just work for the government. Get it? So if they fight, what happens to the gene set? The K-type gene sets are killing each other off. Which is good for which gene set? R-type gene sets. Ooh, get it? Get it? They want K-types to fight and kill each other because it promotes sexual access to the R-type gene set. Woo, like the cuttlefish. Rabbits cannot be wolves. Ban teeth, right? Rabbits cannot be wolves. So we're going to ban teeth. We're going to take the teeth out of all the wolves. And also rabbits too. Okay, we'll take out our teeth, but we'll chew on the grass with our gums. The wolves are dead because they can't bite anything. But the rabbits can survive. They can, gnaw with the gums. K-type organisms, assertiveness is natural. Verbal abuse is an admission of defeat. When you are defeated and you say, well, you're a stinky poo, you're showing you're an idiot. You just got your booty whooped, and now you're saying, well, you stink, you're terrible. Because you got your booty whooped, right? In a sport game or whatever, right? So now you're admitting that you're weak. You're admitting you're an idiot. So verbal abuse is an admission of defeat. It's not, you can't just use verbal abuse, right? In a K-type scenario. K-type organisms recognize a criminal as not me. I am not a criminal. I do not behave. I do not live by that moral code. I am not the same. We are not equal. That cannot be me. That will not be me. Right? It recognizes there's differences between people. You see? And look, I'm willing to shoot and kill in my defense and in my loved one's defense. Absolutely. No question about it. No qualms about it. You try to hurt me or my family, you're dead. That's scary to R-type gene set. Because they know if they have an equal fight, they're dead. Stability and diminished danger feeds the K-type gene set. Eliminating criminals serves this purpose. Right? As you eliminate deviant R-types who are trying to, prey on people, well then, that also allows the K-type gene set to continue, right? Willing to compete in an equal contest even with a criminal. Willing to compete in an equal contest even with a criminal. K-type organisms cannot oppose the R plus governmental power. This is what the R-types know. They know that if they use the archangelic power, the K-types can't win. So think about it. Look at all the people who support the liberal progressive agendas. The communists. What are they supporting? They're supporting governmental power. Use of governmental force distribute what is not mine to what is, just give it to me. They know they can't do that with high-level competitors, so they have to use governmental force to do it. K's ally with limited security powers. K's want to compete with R's on an even playing field. They don't want a central bank. They want to be on a gold standard. They do not want to have fiat currency where we can just print fake money everywhere, right? And have no consequences, right? They want fairness. They want a fair playing ground. In terms of security, R-type organisms think everyone is the same, so love is an illusion. Security diminishes in life as sexual attractiveness decreases. Low investment in children combined with rampant materialism and a lack of bonding means insecure old age. Low investment in community means no communal cushion for accidents or misfortune. So what do the R-type organisms support? They support political focus on unemployment insurance, old age pensions, and free healthcare. Because these are the very things that foster the R-type gene set. Get it? Low investment in children, combined with, as you get older, if you're not responsible in your community, you lived your life just for yourself, smoking weed or do whatever, right? And you want to get subsidized, right? What do they support? They support unemployment insurance, old age pensions, free healthcare, etc. The subsidization of selfishness is what the R-type organism does. I don't want to compete. I don't want to see where I really am. If I'm not at the top, well, let's see, maybe I'm 30 or 40. I want to really know where I realistically am. I want to know. I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm fine not being the first. That's fine. But let me see where I'm really at. They don't want that. The R-type organism does not want that. They don't want to know where they really are. Because, of course, smaller amygdalas. Opposition to ostracism is at the bottom. K-type organisms. Since everyone is not as the same, love is an earned treasure. Oh my gosh. I heard this one guy talking to this counselor, right? And he says, okay, counselor, what should I do? My girlfriend, I know her 3 months, and she cheated on me. And she had sex with this other guy. And, she brought something home. She brought something home. And I found out about it, and I confronted her, and so the counselor asked her, okay, ask him, this is a real story, by the way, ask him, okay, so where is she now? And he says, well, she's living with me. Okay, and the counselor is saying, okay, so let's think about this clearly. Let's think about this clearly. You have a woman who is supposed to be faithful to you, who cheats on you, has sexual intercourse with another man, gets a sexual disease, doesn't even tell you about it, has sex with you, gives you a disease. Do you know what that is? That's called assault. Legally, that's an assault. You can sue her. She just assaulted you. You cannot just put rat poison in somebody else, right? That's assault. You're trying to kill them. If you have knowledge you have a disease and you give it to somebody else, you are trying to kill them. So legally, that's assault. So he said, and the guy kept on saying, well, she had a really tough, childhood, and, she was drinking, and she just said she was bone dead drunk, and you know how that happens, passed out, unconscious drunk, and the counselor said, I've never been bone dead drunk. The counselor says, I like drinking, but I've never been unconscious drunk. If that woman really was unconscious drunk and she woke up next to a man, she should call the police immediately in the morning, because that man just raped you. He just raped you. You were unwittingly having sexual intercourse. But the man continues to go on and say, but she had an abusive parent, and she grew up in poverty, and so the counselor asked, well, what does your mom think about that? And he said, my mom was happy that we're together and we worked it out. She was happy about it. And so he asked her, well, let me ask you about your mom's relationship with your father. What was her relationship with her father? Oh, well, my mom, my father was an alcoholic, and her mom would, I saw her being beaten up, and, things like that. And so the guy says, look, I'm going to tell you something very clearly. You have grown up your whole life avoiding making women feel uncomfortable. You have been trained from a young age to avoid making women feel uncomfortable. This woman that you're dating is a deceitful, lying person. She's evil. She has assaulted you legally with a disease. And she knew about it. And then your mother, who accepted that your dad was an alcoholic and kept him in the home, she is supportive of your decision to just be fine with it. So he said, I guarantee you at some point in your life, you will wake up from this delusion and realize that you are getting the short end of the stick. Everybody is mistreating you because you are not able to create your own boundaries, and you are not able to make women feel uncomfortable if they do evil things. You're running away from making women feel uncomfortable because your mom didn't want, you were taught from a young age that from your mom, don't make me feel uncomfortable. Don't say anything about dad. Don't say anything about this or that. And the guy just broke down. He broke down. K-type organisms understand love is an earned treasure. You find deeper and deeper love. As you get older, your life increases in virtue. It increases in resources. You get wealthier because you lived with virtuous people and you've lived a virtuous life, and you're now richer as you get older. You're not poorer as you get older, and your reputation increases as you get older. K-type organisms have high investments in children. They combine with sensible savings. Monogamy means a secure old age. They invest in the children now, so when they get older, the children will want to care for them. Instead of neglecting their children and having sex with 50 partners or whatever they're doing, and then later on saying, why aren't you caring for me? Right? K-type organisms have high investment in community. That means they have strong communal cushions. If they fail in a business, if they fail in this or that, and if something accident happens, well, they have people because they built strong relationships. They've been honorable. They've created networks of cushions that can help them if things go bad. Right? So they have a political focus on freedom. Freedom to spend and save, and they promote charity over welfare. Charity over welfare. Charity is much more discriminating, right? When you have charity, you don't just throw money out to anybody who asks for it. You say, okay, are you changing your life? There's always a way back, but are you changing your life? You got to stop sleeping with those men. You got to stop having unprotected sex with these men. You got to think about having faithfulness. You got to start changing these habits. Otherwise, we can't help you. You see? Maybe you should go through counseling. We have a program that helps people to identify those. If you don't, we can recommend you somewhere else. You see what I mean? Charities will make you responsible for your actions. They'll help you, but they make you responsible and make sure you work through it. Instead of the welfare state, which says, have rampant, do whatever you want, we'll sex subsidize you. We'll subsidize your sex. K organisms, negative consequences of selfishness, embracing ostracism. K-type organisms embrace ostracism, because that's how you stop this deviant R-type gene set. You ostracize it so it cannot reproduce. You take away its mating options so it doesn't infect the other people in the group with the R-type gene set. You see what I mean? So you're fine with ostracizing. Yes, there's ways back, but you have to show that you're thinking different, you're changing your ways, you're more responsible, you can hold a job, whatever it is, right? So K-type organisms and civilizations embrace ostracism. It's fine. Yes, you can be ostracized if you're a total irresponsible, person. Yes, you can be ostracized. Yes, that's right. We have the freedom to ostracize you. Yes. Government, R-type organisms prefer unlimited majority democracy where verbal abuse and praise shape social policy. How should we shape social policy? Well, if you don't vote for us, you're a racist. If you don't vote for us, you're a bigot and you're a misogynist. Oh, okay, verbal abuse. That's what's going to shape social policy. Who does that? Who does that? The R-type, the liberal progressives always do that, right? They always use the race baiting, always use the verbal abuse card in order to shape public policy. R-type organisms constantly react to anxiety with aggression, political correctness. That is not politically correct. You cannot say that. You're making us anxious. I feel very, very, very insulted. Never-ending witch hunts on the war on drugs, the war on terror, the war on whatever it is. Reject stable laws in favor of resource transfers. Why do they like resource transfers? Resource transfers, or socialism, communism, resource transfer, transferring wealth, creates very unstable situations for people who actually want to be honest and make money honestly. It's very unstable. You don't know what kind of new laws will pop up. So it's unstable. So which gene set is that good for? R-type gene sets. It really is about penis and vagina, really. R-type gene sets. Property rights inhibit R-type organisms against property rights. Why are they against property rights? For no rational reason. Why are they against property rights? Because property rights, if you have private property, you have protection. You can inhibit, you can stop people from having access to you sexually. You have rights. You have property rights over your property. You have rights over your person. So nobody can come in and just rape you. Right? So property rights, property is an extension of your person. Nobody can come in and do stuff on my property. I have the right to then chase you off. Right? Same thing. Nobody can do whatever they want to do on my person, my body. Otherwise, I have the right to kick you off and beat you off, right? R-type organisms hate property rights because they want to break down the barriers of sexual access. They want more sexual access. So by making things public and training kids young, everything's public, everything's public, everything's public, everything's public, well then the kids start believing they're public. Their penis is public. Their vagina is public. Because property, what you have on your person and what you have in your private property is an extension of you, what you work for, right? R-type gene set organisms, selfish emotional gratification, infantile tantrums, greed, etc. Envy is the driving force of the R-type gene set. It is the Lucifer sperm. It is what it is. It is the Lucifer gene set. That's what it is. The R-type gene set is the Lucifer gene set. It is the Lucifer spermata. That's what it is. That's what it is. It is the spermata of Lucifer that destroys civilization. It destroys responsibility. It promotes free sex and it destroys the family. It is the sperm of Lucifer. K-type organisms prefers limited government, democratic republic. They would rather have voluntarism. I don't want anybody to force me to do something. You can't use government to force me to do something. Otherwise, you're the one being violent, right? Why? You can't use government to force me not to say this, because then you're the violent one, right? Verbal abuse and praise is an admission of failure. After you lose and you start trying to say, you bigot, you can't make a real rational argument, so you'll just say, you're a misogynist, or you're a homophobe, or you're a racist, or you hate blacks, or you're a white supremacist, because you can't win a dang argument. Right? You can't rationally compete. So you will use verbal abuse. K's see that as an admission of failure. K-type organisms also enjoy mild anxiety as performance stimulant. They don't see anxiety as bad, necessarily bad. Well, anxiety, like if that person is like way better public speaker than me, then I'm going to be like, whoa, that guy's great. I want to learn from him. What's he doing better than me? I want to learn. That anxiety doesn't say, oh my gosh, he's better than me. Ban him, ban him, ban him. Right? I'm going to use governmental force to ban him because he's better than me. No, I'm going to say, oh, Shemitah, that guy's pretty good. Is that anxiety is, okay, hey, I want to learn from him. Maybe I'll learn from him, right? They're not afraid of that anxiety. It's a performance stimulant. Unafraid of language. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It doesn't matter how much the theological prostitutes call me this or that or unfilial child. Doesn't affect me. What affects me is my honor with my Father. Is my honor code. What affects me is how I live my life with God, not what prostitutes say about me. That doesn't affect me. So unafraid of language. K-type organisms prefer stable and predictable laws. Legality must combat predation, not become a predator, right? When you have stable laws, when you have predictable laws, well, you have more of an equal playing field. People can truly see how far they can go. And if everybody's ability gets them $250 million. That's great. That's wonderful. I'm not jealous of you. It's wonderful. It's great. Right? Guess what? Tomorrow, Rob, let's say Rob had a big boss, and the boss came, hey, Rob, you're doing so great. We're so appreciative. You've been 20 years working in this corporation. You are just amazing. I'm going to give you a $100,000 bonus. I'll write you the check on Monday. Thank you so much for what you've done. Rob's like, woo, whoa. Praise God. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, right? But then Rob leaves that meeting, and he starts talking to Lisa, or he starts talking to, Mariko-san. And wait a minute. They also had a similar meeting. But they got a bonus of $250,000. Now he's laughing. Now he's thinking, oh, wait a minute, that $100,000 was really good at first, because I could think about all the different ways it will benefit my life and my children by, paying off their student loans, whatever. But now I'm comparing with somebody else who has $250,000. And I say, wait a minute. I don't like that. That's unfair. How come only $100,000 for me? Why not $2,150 for me? You see? Instead of saying, wait a minute, I just got $100K. I just got $100K. This is the difference between jealousy and envy. Envy. Big difference. K-type organisms do not need a drug war to keep drugs away from children. Parental investment keeps drugs away from children. When parents teach and talk to their children to learn to be rational, to think, problem solve, to be responsible, to honor their promises, to be responsible people, they stay away from drugs. Usually, right? Higher probability. Drug war increases drugs, increases gang violence, increases black market prices, increases evil in the society, not reduces drug use. K-type organisms reject debt as destructive to children. Children, I always tell my children, do not go into debt. Do not go into debt. Where are my kids? You guys hear that all the time, right? Debt is bad. Don't get into debt. Debt is bad. When you're in debt to the banks, you are slaves to the banks. Be free. Don't go into debt. So when you see it, It is a war. It is a gene war. It is a blood war. It is a lineage war between the R's and the K's. The R-type gene set wants to kill the K-type gene set. The K-type gene set wants to kill off the R-type gene set. It is between God and Satan's lineage. It is a battle between lineage. One lineage destroys civilization. One lineage grows, preserves, and creates civilization. One creates free sex culture. One creates marriage culture. One creates hatred of fathers. One creates respect of fathers. Right? One creates sexual inhibitions, more sexual freedom. One creates sexual responsibility. Absolute sex versus free sex. The fall. The gene set. The battle of the spermata. Saints versus gods. People live their lives without even recognizing they have this biological, genetic, epigenetic force living through them. And if you don't recognize it, you will become a slave of the devil. You will become those who start unlocking your R-type gene set, the Luciferian gene set. And you will start destroying society. Let's look at Chun-Seng-Yong 137. Let's read together. God can say, if I had not made humanity, they would not have become the way they are. How could this happen when I was searching for love and longing for the glorious kingdom of heaven? How could this happen? It was because they inherited the devil's flesh and blood. The devil's love was implanted. What type of love is the devil's love? R-type gene set love, but what is that? Self-love. Self-love, right? R-type gene set love. The devil's love was implanted along with the roots of his life and lineage. There's the gene set. God could not possess humanity without removing these things. But if he did remove them, they would die. Therefore, God had to set up a substitute as a second creation or medium of salvation through an infusion of new blood, life, and love. And that's what Christ brings. That's what Christ brings. New love, life, and lineage. Lineage. That's what he brings. I hope you enjoyed today's word, everybody. Let's all rise up and let's all pray. Let's pray. Hold your neighbor's hand. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you this day. Father, wow, the principle is coming alive. It's coming alive. Whoa, there is a true war of blood. The entire providential history is the war of lineage. Lord, you have given us the salvation of your lineage. But let us never assume that Satan does not want us to stray and accept his spermata, accept his R-type gene set. Father, let us be fearless. Let us have stronger amygdalas. Let us have stronger will so that we are not scared of competing against the devil. That he may not use fear to make us shy away from smashing him in the ground. And that we would be strong, create strong families who honor you and have honor codes. Men and women who are responsible to each other and are compassionate. Father, we thank you for all the things that you're doing, the truth of the divine principle that you revealed, the truth of the fall of man that you have shown. The whole world is waiting. It is now time. It is now time. Father, we thank you. We want to give you all the praise, the glory, and honor. We are saved in Christ by the salvation of grace. And we are abundantly grateful for that. We thank you. We give you all the praise, glory, and honor. We report this in our own names as Central Blessed Families. And we pray this in the name of our Lord Christ, who saves all from the wretchedness of evil. And we give you all the glory, honor, and praise. Amen, and adieu, and amen. Let's give God some glory, everybody. Hug your neighbor. God is good. God is good. God is good.